welcome to the introduction to middle C. We have here our grand staff, and the grand staff, if you'll remember, is made up of the treble staff from the treble clef over here, and the bass staff, and they are linked together by this thing over here called the bracket, this swirly fancy doodad. So middle C is one of the strange ones because when you're trying to figure out the names of the notes on the staff, we went over in the other videos how we have F, we have A, we have C, we have E, we have all of these fancy things, and then for the lines it's every good boy does fine. We have all these fancy things for all the lines and spaces on the two different staves here, but the one thing that isn't really talked about a lot is middle C. Middle C, this middle line right here, which if you'll remember, that little line over there is called a ledger line. The ledger line means it's not on the treble staff, it's not on the bass staff, it's out somewhere else. Now there are other places where you can have ledger lines because you can have ledger lines that go underneath the bass staff, and you can have ledger lines that go above the treble staff, and in fact in between too, but we're not talking about that right now. But the ledger line that I specifically want to talk about is the one that holds middle C. So middle C, especially if you play piano, is one of those first notes that you learn about. A lot of songs, if you want to play a song and you don't want to use any of the black keys, you're probably going to want to stick to a simple one, and that usually is in the key of C. So you're going to use middle C a lot. And middle C, if you're using a piano, is directly in the middle of the piano. So there's our middle, basically, of this piano. And middle C is one that you can sing at really easily. Middle C leads up to, if we're going to do our little notes here, we've got C, we've got, and now if you'll remember, because we go by steps, so C's on the line, D's on the space, E's on the line, and then F is on the space, so we know that because it's right there. And we'll go backwards. So what comes before C in the alphabet, what goes on this line down here? That would be B. And what comes before B on the alphabet? That would be A, and then you keep going down and down and down. So sometimes you are going to get middle C in a funny place. I'm going to show you an example of that. So let's say we only had a treble clef. What would it look like if we had middle C? Well, actually, we would find the bottom line and right underneath it, make a little ledger line, and draw your note. Middle C. But what if we had middle C on the bass clef? What would that look like? Well, let's find out. So, okay, here's our bass clef. And if you'll remember, when we were looking at the grand staff and it went up, middle C was above the bass clef, so the bass staff. And so I draw a little ledger line above, and I put a note on it, and there's my C. There's our middle C. So sometimes you'll see music that, let's get rid of some of these words, that has a line, they've got the middle C really close to the treble staff. And it's like, well, here's my C, and you're like, well, what if I had it down here? Is it still the same note? And the answer is yes. It's still middle C. No matter where they scoot it around in this blank space, it's still going to be middle C. That's not going to change. The only reason why they put it next to the treble staff or the bass staff is to make it easier for you to read. So let's say I was doing a song that went like this. Do, 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 do. So let's say I had a song that went like that. It's going down and it's obviously staying in the bass clef. It wouldn't make a lot of sense if I were going to erase this guy. What if I had my middle C all the way up here? The only reason why that would make sense is if the person who wrote the song had some stuff that came before it that was all up in the treble clef, and then he finished like this was the last note of the treble clef stuff, and then he went on to go do some bass clef stuff. It really wouldn't make a lot of sense to keep the notes super spread out like this, because it's confusing to your eyes. So we will put the D where it seems to fit best. So what if, let's back up. What if I had, for some reason, what if I had a note here, this middle C right here, and I had this middle C over here? Are these two different notes? The answer is no. They're still the same note. If this is in your music, it means that the composer, the person who wrote the song, wants you to probably put both of your thumbs on middle C at the same time so that you can play all the notes that go after, like this would be like finger, this would be finger 1 for your thumb, finger 2 for your index finger, and keep in mind, this is for the left hand, if we're doing piano. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they want you to also be able to go up. So in your right hand, you would go 1, finger 2, finger 3, finger 4, finger 5. And when you're going to do that, that probably means you are going to be playing a song where your fingers are in middle C position, which means both of your thumbs, or another word for that is thumbs on C. That's another saying for what happens when you have two middle Cs being played at the same time. It means they want you playing both of your thumbs at the same time. Thumbs on C. So it doesn't matter where this little ledger line guy is with his one little note on it. Doesn't matter where he is on the staff. It's still middle C, and it's still the same note. Hopefully, this has explained why middle C is the oddball that it is, and thanks for listening.